Oh, yes, everybody. This is okay. I tried my best to do the intro, but I screaming my entire lungs out yesterday because I coach. But this is the DFS Army Fantasy Football Show. We are back for part 2 of our introduction to the 2024 rookie class. You know him well. He is Brandon Adam, and I am Flex Matt. And last time we got a little juiced. I mean, we intended, although we knew we probably weren't going to be able to get through the entire rookie class in one singular pod, we thought we might, and we ended up getting just through our top 10 rookie wide receivers, which in the short span of 5 days have already changed due to the Senior Bowl. But now we traverse into the quarterbacks, running backs, and the tight ends today. Brandon Adam, how are you doing today? How was this weekend for you? Like I said, I coach high school wrestling. We moved 7 on to regionals in our tournament, and I always scream my life out because I love these kids and I care about them. But Brandon, how was your weekend?
Good, man. First weekend without kids hockey, so I took my ladies out for a POW day. We got about over a foot and a half of fresh powder up here in Colorado, so took them out, had a good time yesterday.
As we get into these rookies, the wide receivers, like I said, we already did on part 1. If you wanted to start there, you can go back to the previous pod on the DFS Army podcast sphere. You can catch that anywhere. You can go like us at the Flex Network 1 at DFS Army. DFS Army, we win life-changing money, and it's not even funny. I mean, we just do, and if you choose not to follow us, then you are wrong. Every time. You are absolutely wrong. We won the $1 million a couple years in a row, a couple different events. PGA won the $1 million at the U.S. Open last year. Brandon Adam, I know as we get into the quarterbacks, it seems like we have a very secure number one, just like, we also have a very secure number one wide receiver. And I know you being a USC guy, I love USC, but why don't we go ahead and talk about our favorite quarterback of the year for both of us? That is one Caleb Williams.
Caleb Williams, he's him. We've been waiting for him for a while. Special talent. What makes him different is the fact that he is the most creative player in college football. He is not the most athletic for sure, but he has a different kind of special pocket awareness that you can't teach. You can't teach his escapability, his ability to get away from the rush. And by God, if you watch any USC games, for a fact our offensive line was garbage. I don't think Caleb Williams had a game where he wasn't completely under siege and he had to make things happen with his legs. And he's 6'1", 215. He's not overly big. He's not 6'4" like a Drake May, but he is 6'1", 215 solid. I expect him to run somewhere in the neighborhood of hopefully underneath the 4.5, but I think he's sneaky at changing gears, which makes him look faster than he really is. But I can't wait to see his 40 and what he's able to do at the combine. But this kid, if he came out of Oklahoma, his first year in college football was at Oklahoma, and then he transferred out to USC once Riley went out to USC. And last year was his worst year at USC. I'll say that. 2022 was his best year in college football, where he had 389 pass attempts, and he was able to, really lock down. That's where he kind of came into superstardom, was in 2022 in college football. Last year, he just wasn't as good. But he also lost himself quite a bit of weapons in the Drake London. Amon-Ra was his he wasn't there when Amon-Ra was there, but Drake London left, and you could tell he was missing a big-time weapon on the outside. Jerry Rice's son wasn't quite Drake London this last year, and so he definitely was struggling with some of that adjustment. But this kid, It is everything that you want as a number one player coming out of college, and his A dot his A dot. The one thing I love about him is off of no play action. His A dot was at 10.3. Average yard depth of target was at 10.3. With play action, it was only at 7.5. I would have expected it to be higher, but because of the fact that he didn't have the weapons in 2023 that he had in 2022, his A dot did drop down a little bit overall from a 9.8 to 9.2 in 2023. So I just think this kid has it all. His rushing ability is uncanny around the end zone. He really knows how to he just knows how to make those linebackers bite. And he is he runs like a snake almost. He he knows how to weave in and out of traffic and get in the end zone. And that is the biggest thing I'm looking at. It is a bonus for him, is that I know that he's 6'1". He's not this prototypical size of a Josh Allen or anything like that. But this kid is going to be able to finish inside the red zone with his legs. And that's special stuff, what he was able to do. Just throw on the Notre Dame tape from last year, and you're going to see everything that we're talking about with the off-platform throws, with the off-speed throws. He knows how to change ball speed off of his hand, off the release, and he really knows how to do that well. Better than everybody in this class by far, in my opinion. I just think he's just the most creative. But the one con about him is that he is very much he needs to play within the offensive system better being on time. I hope when he gets into the NFL that he finds a coach that and that coach gets him to play within the offense. At USC, he kind of had free will. He kind of just could do what he wants, and you could tell that he really didn't trust his offensive line, and he kind of just had to go impromptu with a lot of throws. So I hope he has a better line in the NFL, and he can kind of be protected, and we can see that better pocket presence from him. But the kid's just special. Like he does just special things outside the pocket, and you can't coach that stuff. And so that's why he's my number one. He's better than Jaden Daniels, where in that sense of the off script plays, he can really help out any team in the NFL, especially, when you're drafting up top, you're a bad team. So you're going to need a guy that can get away from pressure and be able to create. And that is who he is. It's just, we're kind of lucky that he's either going to be going to Chicago or Washington Commanders. Both of those teams have some offensive weapons to throw to already. So that's kind of nice versus going to a New England where you are starting from scratch. You are literally starting from scratch with that offense. And I pray that he goes to a team that has some offensive power.
Yeah, let's not get it twisted. You didn't mean Drake London. You meant Jordan Addison. So he had Jordan Addison as his primary target.
Jordan Addison, sorry.
Yeah, and so you could tell it definitely dropped off. I mean, it's not so much that the talent he had at the receiver position might not grow to something that's really great, because he had an electric freshman there at USC, but you can definitely tell. And the same thing happened with Drake May, which we'll get into talking about. When Josh Downs, when Josh Downs left, when Jordan Addison left, their security blankets completely left.
Yep.
And it's something that we might get to talk about a little bit later, maybe not in this podcast, but maybe in another podcast, about Spencer Rattler and Xavier Legette. I mean, when you have a guy that you trust, if it ends up being a undersized wide receiver, then great. But in Spencer Rattler's case, it ends up being a monster receiver in Xavier Legette, kind of boosting his stock, which has now fallen since Senior Bowl for Xavier Legette. But, the thing I like to talk about with Caleb Williams, and I think everybody else will talk about it with Caleb Williams, but he is exactly Patrick Mahomes to the T. The way that he plays, the way that he tries to be funky, I think. And that uniqueness at the quarterback position, like you said, it isn't so much about how he needs to be in a system per se, but just that he creates his own system. So where we see the faults in Patrick Mahomes this year is that, okay, well, Patrick Mahomes didn't have Tyreek Hill. Okay, so now he blankets or he powder puffs his main target in Travis Kelce, and then he kind of hopes that other guys will be there for outlets. And Rashee Rice this year was a great outlet. If they end up drafting another wide receiver, then they can be something that by chance go extremely dynamic. But without getting somebody that can actually stretch the field, that can open the play up for this guy's arm, I think the negatives on Caleb Williams are that he sometimes scrambles himself into issues, or he sometimes,
he does,
off scripts himself into issues. But that's okay, because you would rather prefer Caleb Williams off scripting himself than a guy just taking a sack and not being dynamic, which is the QBs underneath of him at times. So we love Caleb Williams at 1. That's a definitive number 1 for us. Number 2, I think is definitive for us as well.
Yep.
Now in the NFL, on the actual NFL market, you have some people debating our number 3 for fantasy as the NFL number 1. But I believe that Caleb Williams will be the best fit for fantasy football, just as Patrick Mahomes lit up the entire NFL. I do believe that what you're saying is 100% correct about Caleb Williams. It looks like he is actually going to get the nuts landing spots, because we don't look at Chicago and Washington like they are a bad landing spot. Especially with what Chicago's potentially doing. And Chicago has pick 9 as well. And so we could actually see something crazy go off here, where they already have DJ Moore. They've got 2 competent running backs, or at least guys they can throw in there that will look good, or high second-round picks if you want to go and get the top running backs, which we'll talk about later on here as well. Yeah. But they could do something crazy where the 9th pick overall this year is fishing like it could be a Rome Odunze, fishing like it could be, who knows? Malik Neighbors fell in a last mock that I saw because the Giants decided to, and this draft is going to be really unique and fun to watch and see what happens. So if Caleb Williams goes to Chicago, I'm not too upset about it. He goes to Washington, I'm not too upset about it. But here's the issue, is our number 2 guy, Jaden Daniels, and Jaden Daniels, he might get the draw bad spot, which ends up being the NFL QB3, which ends up being the Patriots, which we don't love for a landing spot. But pre-draft, when we're just looking at talent, we love Jaden Daniels. The thing about Jaden Daniels are, when you look at the top QBs from last year, you've got Dak Prescott, you've got Josh Allen. Josh Allen's at the top. Dak Prescott. Then you have, I have my stats thing left here. Okay, so Josh Allen, Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, Jordan Love, then Lamar Jackson. Okay, those are your top 5. Jordan Love snuck into the top 5 this year, which is great. Jaden Daniels, to me, screams he's more Jordan Love than he is Lamar, in my personal opinion. But a combo of the two are a really nice fit for him in the type of player that he is. Thing about Lamar Jackson and why it's taken Lamar a little bit is because the Ravens team offensively has not been really good. Hollywood Brown was first round pick, but he was an undersized receiver, and that was all they had. Now, what did they have to do? Well, they did exactly what you would expect to do when you have a guy who you don't really trust his arm. And Jaden Daniels, the problem about him is you look at the stats, and if you're a stat chaser on Jaden Daniels, you think he's phenomenal. You think he could probably be the number 1 receiver. He has 2 potential top 15 overall wide receivers on his team who great. By the way, the one of them in any other draft class would be like the number 1 receiver in the entire draft class, like Not even close. So
Yep.
you look at his stats and you think, oh, wow, well, why can't this guy be number one? Well, he kind of throws the ball like Lamar, and that's why he's a combo of Jordan and Lamar, because I think Jordan's a better passer than Lamar. So Lamar's shortcomings are his passability, but sometimes you see Lamar rocket that ball in places that you think, wow, he's really got some upside here, but it's just not there, and it still needs to grow. And I think that's exactly where Jaden Daniels sits. He has some really great downfield passing opportunities. He has some really good downfield ball placement. He has really good short area ball placement, but he sometimes isn't there, sometimes way off, sometimes inaccurate, but he's got the rushing chops to really take a game over, and that's completely Lamar.
You know who I think my comp for him is RG3. He has that same whippy release as RG3 did, where when he has the time to actually load up that and whip his arm like he does, there is no better, prettier deep ball. I mean, it really is beautiful to watch. But when you have that whip in your release, those intermediate passes become harder. And those short area passes become harder. But he did, like you said, he had top talent around him, and it really showed. It really showed. I mean, if you really look at his ADOT in 2023 was 10.5 average depth per target, which is higher than Caleb Williams ever was in college football. He came from Arizona State for first 3 years. Jaden Daniels was at Arizona State. He played okay there. And then he transferred out in 2022, went to LSU. In this first year at LSU, his ADOT was only 8.2. And then it jumped all the way up to 10.5, which is a huge thing to me, which means the guy literally just locked in for his last year and just exploded. I mean, 40 touchdowns in 2023 versus in 2022 with LSU, only at 17 his first year at LSU. I mean, that is incredible. That just tells you this guy worked his tail off and became a real professional quarterback. And this was only on 333 attempts. I mean, 332 attempts for 2023. He had 40 touchdowns. That's just absurd. So this kid has unreal upside. If he goes, I pray that somehow he goes to either Chicago or Washington, and does not go to New England. Maybe New England decides to go get themselves a Marvin Harrison Jr. instead. If they have the choice and they decide to get the for sure lockdown best prospect in this draft, no matter position, and Marvin Harrison, most people consider him the best prospect in the draft, period. If they decide to go that route and he somehow drops and gets to go to a better offense, a better, a more fuller team, I would be very happy about that. But Jaden Daniels, he is my number 2 as well, locked in. He is not moving. I don't think I'm moving him down. I still haven't decided. If he goes to New England, I might move him down. But if New England goes and signs somebody like a T. Higgins, they have the money to do it. They can go get a T. Higgins, go get that number 1 wideout for a Jaden Daniels if they decide to go that route. I'll keep him there. But yeah, as it sits, it's definitely a knock if he goes to New England. Landing spots do matter, especially when you're talking about going to all these top places to land for quarterbacks all have new coaches except for Chicago, which Eberflus was not good. I mean, he really wasn't a great head coach last year. I'm actually a little worried about him going to New England, but our boy Shane's probably yelling at his TV screen right now saying, don't talk shit about his Patriots. But it's just they need some more help, man. They really need some wide receiver help, and I hope that you'll get it in free agency and in this draft because there's so much talent to do it. So let's see. Let's hope. But Jaden Daniels, my comp for him is RG3. If he tightens up that release a little bit, he can become even better. But yeah, so I see you, Shane. I get you. Jaden Daniels to me is probably best quarterback for them to draft because he can create on his feet, right? He can create bad offense out of bad plays with just his ability. His running ability, no one is better in college football. And honestly, going into NFL just for the running aspect, I think he's top 5. Like, I mean, he is right there with the big names and the Allens, the Hurts, the Kyler Murrays, the guys that we love to watch. This kid has that special knack and ability where he can just create offense by himself. And that is something you can't coach, and it's special. And yeah, I love Jaden Daniels. I'm going to try and get him as much as possible. If he somehow drops to the 104 in your drafts, in Superflex drafts, I would smash the button very quickly.
Yeah, I think Jaden Daniels actually fits well in New England just because you just kind of hit it on the head there at the end, that you have to be able to create.
Yep.
And they have had a guy who has none of that.
None.
It's never been known for any of that right now. So
yeah,
I think it's a sneaky spot because you look at the QBs there that might be on the board, and you look at teams behind them that need quarterbacks. And you're talking about, well, what is New England, or not New England, New York Giants, what are they going to do? Could they deal Danny Dimes in like a cheap something or other? Justin Fields, same thing. So could the Patriots just cut bait, take a 2nd-round pick for Justin Fields and go Marvin Harrison right here, like you said?
That would be awesome.
Which I think would completely upgrade the team for a little bit, but they got to spend money on it. But they probably have the cap. I mean, it's also to become more dynamic at the position. To bet on a rookie is not necessarily the way to go. It may put butts in the seats for your real hardcore fans, but when you get down to the old money that's in New England, they probably would prefer to see wins now than to bet on a young guy coming up. Go ahead.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see the difference in the way they go about the draft and free agency with no Bill Belichick. I'm curious to see how they're going to go, because Bill Belichick could not draft a wide receiver for the life of him outside the numbers. He couldn't do it. He tried. He couldn't do it. He got N'Keal Harry instead of A.J. Brown. That was the biggest miss of all time with wide receiver position in the draft. It was just insane to me that they decided to do that when, A.J. Brown thought he was going to be a Patriot the whole time during the draft process. He came out about it and said it. It's just, yeah, I'm actually excited to see what this is going to be, the new look Patriots, and I hope they decide to go a little new age here. I think they need to kind of modernize themselves with the NFL. They've kind of been behind the times a little bit ever since, because they had the GOAT Tom Brady, and then when he left, they couldn't figure it out. So they're drafting 3 for a reason. So let's get after it. And I'm just curious to see what they're going to do. It's going to be fun to
if they
see
do Jaden Daniels, he's both our number 2 rookie quarterback. So we like it. We could see what happens there. But moving on to 3, now, is Drake May your 3?
Yes.
Okay, so I feel like I have to put Drake May 3. I don't necessarily want to. I think for fantasy football, I have a different number 3, but I think because he's going to get opportunity, and because he's going to land 1 or 2, and because of what we mentioned earlier about how the landing spots for Drake May seem to be Washington, or seems to be that he's landing at Washington in number 2, and we like the Washington receiving core. Also, we like the position they're in again, where they could end up drafting a really good, talented running back that really secures both positions for them, instead of using 2 mid-tier guys to kind of give you what you have. I mean, Brian Robinson was a great fantasy running back this year. I mean, sneakily.
It was good.
And if you put Drake May in that system and then you draft somebody else, even at the wide receiver position, they're going to end up looking a lot better. And the short to intermediate is where Drake May's game really lies. He is a sneaky upside rusher, but all of those North Carolina guys are. And that's kind of what scares me a little bit is the North Carolina guys, like the one they already have in the QB spot at Washington, have sneaky rushing upside. Do they ever get to use it? Absolutely not. So I'm not really factoring that. I'm going off a mechanics thing with these rankings, and then also where they land, which I think is going to be better for the guy that I have 3 now, which is Drake May, but my sneaky 3's coming up here pretty soon that we're going to talk about. But Drake May's velocity short to intermediate is untouched, and that's kind of why he ends up being your top 2, and in the NFL scheme he may be the number 1 QB picked. I mean, some people believe that he may go over.
It could be possible
because Caleb, again,
want to be in Chicago.
Well, doesn't want to be in Chicago. That's fine. But also because, again, he kind of schemes himself into trouble sometimes. And if the guy thinks he's a superstar and he's like Kyler Murray and maybe he plays video games. I don't know what he does, but maybe you just don't want a guy like that. And Drake May's got NFL pedigree in his family bloodline. And maybe you just want a guy like that. You want that type of leadership. With Buffalo, when they picked Josh Allen, they went shoot for the stars with Josh Allen, and then they landed on a star, right? But that's why the other guys went before it. It's like,
but they developed him into that star as well.
That's kind of true, but at the same time, he's a gunslinger, and sometimes when you sling the gun, sling the rock, it lands in the right place sometimes. And they built around him, and they got a healthy veteran at the time. Diggs has fallen off, but if Drake May can go into the system where he has Terry McLaurin, where he has Curtis Samuel, where he has Brian Robinson Jr. right now, where right now they can be a pretty decent football team, because you saw what what's his name did as the quarterback there last year. I forgot his name off the top of my head. Sam Howell,
the other UNC quarterback.
Yeah, and we love Sam Howell. We actually we went out and bought Sam Howell in Dynasty.
Heck yeah, we won on that. Yeah,
because he was cheap. Now we may be off on it, but either way, I like Drake May. Where his shortcomings is his downfield velocity. His arm strength, low key on the short to intermediate, looks great. And then when he huffs the ball downfield, it does fall short sometimes. Now, the problem is when you go look at his highlights and his film,
it's all deep.
His deeper passes look like they're coming from the 40, 45 into the end zone, which that's a 40-yard pass. I'm talking about our 50 to 60-yard passes through the air to really hit a guy in stride. And admittedly, could that have been a little bit of Tez Walker problems? Well, who knows? We saw Tez Walker in the Senior Bowl. He did not come down with any of those long shots, but you throw it up to him because he may have had a step on the guy. So is it Tez Walker? Is it a little bit of Drake May? Well, last year, we didn't have a separator. We had Josh Downs, and he was electric with him, short to intermediate. So you go in, you got Curtis Samuel. He's effective in that position. You've got Terry McLaurin, short, intermediate, and sometimes downfield. I think that's a really good place for him. But in fantasy football, without being able to use the legs, you got to bet on the touchdowns. That's why I'm putting him behind Jaden Daniels.
Just the one thing that stuck out to me. So my comps for Drake May are Carson Wentz and Jay Cutler. Carson, the reason I comp him to Carson is that he holds on to the ball a ton. He gets himself into some bad spots, and then he takes some sacks, and then he forces throws. And then
are you talking about Caleb Williams or
no? I'm talking about
because he does the same thing. Caleb does the same thing.
But Caleb is electric outside the pocket. Like, it's different. It's a different kind of game and player versus a Drake May. Drake May is more of a rumbling, bumbling kind of guy. Caleb Williams is literally like watching a matador play with bulls. Like, he's literally allaying people 2-3 times in one play, and it's just incredible to watch. That's why he has more Sports Center highlights than all these guys, and it's because of that reason. He has a special ability to move in and out of the pocket. But with Drake May, my God, dude, when he runs the ball, he gets annihilated at the ends of these runs. He gets dumped on top of his head more than any other quarterback quarterback in this class, dude. If you rewatch some of his runs, it is some rough endings to these runs. So that reminds me of Carson Wentz and Jay Cutler when Jay was a tough SOB. And Carson Wentz was a tough SOB. They're too tough for their own good. And that's what kind of Drake kind of reminds me of. It's like, this kid is tough as nails and he feels like he's got to do it. But man, he really opens himself up to some monster hits. So that is the only thing I kind of see in his game where this kid could end up getting hurt a lot. But he is 6'4", 220. Like, he is a big dude. So he can take some pounding, unlike a Caleb Williams where he's 6'1", 215. And Jaden Daniels, I mean, he's 6'4", 215. So it's just what it is. But with Daniels versus May, Daniels is slick as ice, man, when he's running. He doesn't take those hits, period. With Drake, he takes a lot of hits, man, and it scares me. But I hear you. He has some great touch with some of these routes, especially the post routes up through the seams. He really knows how to throw those balls into the teeth of the defense. I really like that about him. But on the short, on some of these swing passes, he misses them. But it's sometimes with these college kids, they end up hitting the hard throws and screwing up the easy ones. So it's just kind of being a kid and not having your brain locked in on those easy throws. But that's just my thing about Drake May, is that I'm kind of worried that he's not going to be able to stay healthy the way he takes hits.
I get you. But that's also the difference between picking him at 3 in fantasy football instead of 1 at fantasy football. His rush upside, his willingness to go out there and get hurt, that's okay for regular football.
Right.
But at the fantasy, it's the same thing with Justin Herbert, man. We've been seeing him play. He's rumbling, bumbling. He's big enough guy to go out there and kind of put his body on the line. But when you're playing injured, it's not good for my fantasy football team. And we love Justin Herbert. We love him, absolutely love him. And he's often comped to Drake May, but I think that's disrespectful because Justin Herbert can stand flat-footed on the goal line and huff at 65 yards. Drake May just ain't doing it.
So, for sure.
Our number 4 quarterback, I think we're also in consensus here that it's big. I mean, maybe not, but my 4th quarterback is Big Penix Energy. My guy, Michael Penix. And this week at the Senior Bowl, it has 100% solidified him, in my personal opinion, as the QB4. Bo Nix is probably the top faller coming out of the Senior Bowl. Apparently, well, that's what the news is. Penix did look good, but there's only 2 good QBs at the Senior Bowl. So the problem is
everybody was staring at those 2 the whole day.
Yeah. So I don't disagree that Penix didn't have a decent Senior Bowl, but when you're standing right next to the guy, Michael Penix, and then also not throwing as well as Michael Penix, then you actually get to the game and play. Now, he did have a touchdown, but there was a couple throws that you just didn't love. And so the thing about it is now we're back to this rushing upside, which we just decided to take the rushing upside and 1-2 over Drake May. But now we're at the point where I think I'm taking the arm of Penix and the fact that he a lot of people talk about, Penix got pressured in the championship game, and because he got pressured, he didn't deal with it, and then he gets the Senior Bowl. Maybe sometimes he didn't deal with the pressure very well, so that's a knock on him. Well, let me tell you about pressure. He beat the Oregon Ducks 2 times in a row. The Oregon Ducks was a much better football team collectively.
Yes,
100%. Going in to play Texas, which you will now see. You're not going to see D linemen from Michigan, or at least very many of them, being drafted in the first round. You will see a defensive talent from Texas being drafted in the first round, or at least you should by the time it's all said and done. The pressure was there all the way through getting to the championship game. Not to mention, he was in the Heisman race again with Jaden Daniels, who had already fallen off. So, yeah, not only do you have to go out there and try to win the game for your team, try to win the game to prove you're a better, you have a better draft stock in you than Bo Nix going against him 2 times in the year. Then you have to go and prove to try to win the Heisman on top of that. And all of that pressure, he did not succumb to it. He moved his team on to the national championship game. Romo Dunze was open. Penix missed it a couple times, so I don't disagree, but I do think that Penix is getting better, and I think it's just like with CJ Stroud is Penix does have rushing upside. He's probably not going to unleash it until his second contract just so that we can get this money, and I think his deep ball is absolutely unreal. It Russell Wilson unreal. And I say that because Russ wasn't known for his deep ball. He was known for being a gritty, tough guy that can launch the ball, but it wasn't like people were looking at Russell Wilson as the best deep ball quarterback of the class with Andrew Luck and RG3. Turns out he was slinging teardrops all year long, taking his team to the Super Bowl. And you watched Penix throw the deep ball, they're freaking lobby teardrops that fall right into place.
Yep.
It is better than Patrick Mahomes. Long ball. I believe that. The problem is he going to be able to throw that ball in the NFL? That's soon to be seen. Also, landing spot's going to decide that. Patrick Mahomes doesn't throw that deep ball right now because he has no Tyreek Hill. But you look at Tua, and you saw some deep ball accuracy from Tua. You get him with the best deep ball receiver in the league, and he looks great this year. So give me Penix at 400%.
Okay. Yeah, I have like a 4A, 4B with Bo. It just depends on what the offense you're looking to run. If you're looking to run more of a spread, you're probably going to go Bo. But if you're running more professional, under the center, I think Penix is kind of the guy. His stroke is Stroud-esque. He reminds me a lot of Stroud of last year. That's how I view him. So if the only thing with me is this, his injury history is large and deep. That's the biggest thing with Penix is he's been beat up throughout college football. So if a team is worried about that, he could drop because of that. But in fantasy football, we're kind of like, I don't know. I'm kind of injury agnostic in a way. It just depends. But with quarterbacks, I'm willing to take more of a chance with guys that have been injured in college versus versus a running back. If a running back is constantly getting injured in college, I'm not big into him in the NFL. But with Penix, this guy, like you said, he does it all. Intermediate, deep ball. Roman Dunze, his deep ball to Rome was uncanny. The timing, the chemistry,
unmatched.
The chemistry was unbelievable, and so I just love the way he spins it deep. And you're right. I'll be with you. 4 is Penix for sure. But I was worried. I was kind of watching Bo Nix. I was watching Bo Nix's tape, and I really like his tape a lot. He's very accurate. He gets the ball in stride for his wide receivers to hit yak ability. He puts his wide receivers in good position to gain more yards. That's the biggest thing in the NFL, in the new age NFL is, can you get the ball in a place where these guys can get the ball and keep going downfield? If you're a guy like, I don't know, here's a name, Desmond Ridder, where you're literally throwing a guy to stop his route and stop his movement, you are not going to succeed in the NFL. Bo Nix does that quite well. Penix does that quite well. But Penix is bigger, 2 inches taller, big ass hands, stronger arm. He just does a little bit better. I'm just worried about the injury stuff.
Let's secure Penix at 4.
Sure.
It seems like we're divided at 5. So you can go ahead since you're already talking about Bo Nix. I have Bo Nix at 6. So, and I believe that you probably have my 5 at 6. So let's just at least talk about Bo Nix at 5. Go ahead.
Yeah. Bo's, if you watch any big time football games, this guy him and Troy Franklin had something, a chemistry that was very, very tangible and real that you could see through the screen. This guy was throwing people open in windows that, you really got to throw a dot in there. But like you said, his arm isn't as strong, so the deep ball wasn't as prevalent in that offense. But, man, he can really throw those intermediate routes. He can really throw people in tight windows up close to within 15 yards of the line of scrimmage. He really knows how to do that. My comp for him, he reminds me, I'm not saying he's this guy, finished product guy yet. Okay. I'm not saying this, but he has the same kind of stroke as a Drew Brees. Okay. He has that kind of similar power to his arm. Drew was not the strongest arm quarterback coming out of the college as well. This is what he can grow into. But he is 6'1". He came in a little smaller than he was listed at as Oregon at the Senior Bowl, an inch shorter. So he's 6'1", not 6'2". That is something that, a lot of these players are happening. This is happening all across the board. But I just like Bo Nix a lot, man. I think he can really run an offense. He's a good leader. The kid has some grit to him. He takes big hits. He really waits people out. He knows how to read first read to third read. He really knows how to do that. He really had control of his offense. That's the way I can kind of describe him. He had real complete control of his offense. He knew where people were before the actual play even was snapped. You could really tell that he had a good control of how he plays the game. But I know where you're going for 5, so go ahead with your 5.
Yeah, well, so this is why I don't like Bo Nix. Troy Franklin, Bucky Brooks, or not Bucky Brooks.
Bucky Irving.
Bucky Irving. The best center in all of college football, who is soon to be a Seahawk here soon.
Hopefully.
And you couldn't get the job done. And so my whole thing is,
he won a lot of games.
Won a lot of games, sure. I mean, he's also been in college football for 5 years. Okay. So and he's had an up and down career. He didn't have a consistently up career until he ended up with talent that was top 5 at both running back, offensive line and receiver. And still, again, couldn't get it done. He's a guy that, in my opinion, just can't get it done. He is not Brock Purdy. I mean, you would hope that he would be Brock Purdy, but he's not. He's not Brock Purdy. So the only upside
better
to
than Brock Purdy coming out, but go ahead.
Yeah, maybe coming out, but he's not Brock. I mean, that's the difference. Is he might be a better prospect, but he's not going to live up to that, in my opinion. Maybe he is good. Maybe he's Daniel Dimes, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with Danny Dimes, but where I'm not okay is betting on getting Danny Dimes, and I don't want Danny Dimes. I want somebody who might grow to be Brock Purdy, who might grow to be better than Brock Purdy, maybe.
He can run better than Brock. I know that. Bo can run.
I agree.
So
I agree. And that's in fantasy football, that's great. But this year you saw Brock Purdy ascend to that 6 or 7 overall QB with very little rushing upside. I mean, he has getaway ability, but he's not a rushing quarterback. But that's why I love JJ McCarthy. I think JJ McCarthy has a mind for the NFL, unlike Bo Nix. And when you play with Harbaugh and Harbaugh praises you so much, well, Harbaugh's a former NFL quarterback. He wasn't good, but Harbaugh knows how to coach good QBs or at least middling QBs to high performance QBs, which is Colin Kaepernick, right? I forget if he coached Jimmy G or if he was out of there by then or not. So, but my whole point is mid-tier QBs succeed under Harbaugh, but they also learn the game and they understand the game. And that's why Colin Kaepernick, I mean, if the whole movement didn't happen, Colin would probably still be playing. He probably would be on a Geno Smith level thing. The difference is people slight JJ McCarthy because he didn't get it done in the national championship game against TCU. Fine.
Because he was fucking rattled.
Threw only 12 passes in the national championship game against Washington. Fine. But why knock the guy the scheme? The scheme's a rushing team. I mean, again, you look at Geno Smith and it's like, well, he's only asked to throw, X amount of times. I mean, maybe games where we're throwing more, but we're a rushing team. We're running on second down no matter what. We're not passing the ball. So can JJ pass the ball? Well, if you go back and look at Ohio State, there's a clip that you have of JJ McCarthy. In this clip, I would like everybody to go and watch and see right now. But there's a play where Roman Wilson is taking it's like a post. It's a post. He's an inside post. I think he's lining it probably as like the tight end or something. I think it's Roman Wilson, but anyway, he's inside and he's posting out. He noticed on tape that the safety, the second that he decides he's going to run with the post, he absolutely turns his back, runs with the post. JJ McCarthy has the nutsack to throw the ball on a fucking rope. I'm telling you, I'm getting emotional about this. That's why I'm cussing. But throws it on a rope. He literally throws it at the defender's back. If the defender doesn't do exactly what he saw on tape, the ball is intercepted, absolutely. And it literally the ball looks like it's going to nail the safety in the back plate of his chest pads. But it actually just goes to the exact perfect window where the safety was, where the receiver meets it, in between both the manned up corner and the safety. In this little spot, perfect on a dime, touchdown. The other thing, there's a drive, the very first drive of the national championship game. Now, some people think that Harbaugh is also a very cocky coach. I think we all know that about him, which is why some people don't like Harbaugh. But in the very first drive of the national championship game against TCU, JJ McCarthy gets the team all the way to the goal line. Then the goal line plays. They ran the Philly special. They freaking ran inside plays on a 9-man box 2 or 3 times on second down or something like that. It ends up being that JJ has the vision enough to skedaddle out of there when he sees pressure. What's really nice about JJ, and I think I almost put JJ at 3. This is really what I'm trying to say here. For next level NFL, right off the snap, JJ has a scan that's going on in his mental mindset. But I have not seen anybody in my film review of this entire class that has been able to scan and have the awareness of the rush. JJ's awareness of the rush is so next level, it's unreal. The second he realizes in 2 seconds he's going to be in trouble, he's out of there. And what's really nice about this play is he gets out of there, runs all the way around with his feet, and almost darts with the heart that he has to get out of there into the end zone to give his team a shot. The left end comes from all the way across the field to save the touchdown on the goal line. And it's just the heart that this kid has. And he's getting better. He's 6'3", 200, so he's a little undersized. I want to say maybe like 202 or something like that. But he can run, and he's getting better at it. And his NFL mindset is there. He does read defenses. Sometimes he locks on his single receiver. But the way he does it in movement it's so tough because some people say, well, if you lock on your primary receiver, that's giving the defense a tell. Understandable. I understand that. But if you're locking on the defense, or if you're locking on your offensive player because you've already read the defense so well that you know exactly where this ball is going to go pre-snap, the only good position pre-snap because your film study is that good, that's the stuff that I'd love to see and he wins. He wins games. He gets himself in there. Something Bo Nix can't do. Something Michael Penix didn't do.
I'm just gonna throw one number at you, okay? All right, one category, which is percentage of dropbacks that are percentage of pressures that turn into sacks, okay? For JJ McCarthy, that was 16.8% of the time. For Bo Nix, that was only 7.2%.
Let me tell you why.
So that's why but I'm just saying this, that do you know who has the highest percentage in this whole class? It's Caleb Williams, but 23%. So it's just things can happen when you don't have a line around you. The offensive line around Bo Nix was better. I'll say that right now. It was better. So
much better.
much better. I get
the
that.
talent,
but
much better.
Yeah, but I'm just saying he operated within that talent. He could have got more out of it, but he was only there for 2 years at Oregon. But in his first year at Oregon, it wasn't that great, to be honest. He literally went 71% completion rate. In his second year, jumped all the way up to 77% completion rate. But we're talking about an Oregon offense where everything is short. We know this, okay? We know this. If you look at his ADOT, 6.8, that's the lowest of all these guys for Bo Nix at 6.8 yards for average depth of target versus, JJ McCarthy, he's right up there almost at 10, 9.8. It's more pro under center pro style offense, and it shows. It just depends on what direction and where these guys are going. Who gets these guys? Are they drafting for their system, or are they drafting just based off talent or whatnot? But for me, if JJ goes to the right spot, I think I can move him above Bo for sure. But as of right now, I'm putting Bo up above him. But I get you. I just wasn't in love with how he looked in the national title game, man. He looked nervous. He looked rattled for almost 3/4 of the game, man. And that's what he didn't settle in the national title game to me.
Hey,
He got lucky because he had Blake Corum. Blake took so much off his plate.
Let me tell you who also didn't look good in the national championship game. Bo Nix. Because he wasn't there. Okay.
Oh, I got you, but it doesn't matter. That's a team thing. You're acting like we're talking about individual talent. We're not talking about.
But this is what I'm trying to say.
Teams around you. Yeah,
but JJ's a winning quarterback. For 2 years in a row, he had tough, stiff competition with less around him.
The Pac-12 is better than the Big Ten, dude.
No, I'm talking about the defenses faced in the Pac-12 versus the defenses faced in the Big Ten. We're talking Penn State. We're talking Ohio State. It's not close. But I don't disagree the offensive capabilities of Bo Nix. I just wish that he could have done more with them. But Penix did. Penix did make it. That's why we got Penix at 4. We've got a little bit of divisive.
Yeah, Penix.
We got a little bit of decisions at 5, but that's okay. We're talking pre-draft. So we're deep in the tooth here. I don't know if you want to stop at QBs or do a quick run through with their RBs because, okay, we're going to go ahead and stop. We did this again, Brandon. I don't know how we do this. I think it's because this class does deserve.
It's deep.
It's deep, and it does deserve a little bit of more juice. Actually, you know what? Let's finish.
Let's just do it 15 minutes.
Hold on. Let's finish real quick with just maybe the tight ends.
Yeah, let's just knock out.
And then let's leave the core of the running back. So quickly with the tight ends, we all know this about Brock Bowers. Okay, Brock Bowers. They've mentioned about him for quite a long time. That he was coming up and he was going to be the best tight end prospect that has ever lived next to Kyle Pitts. I agree. I 110,000% agree that he is the best tight end prospect because I don't think that Pitts's block ability is anywhere near what Brock's is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't think Brock is the receiver that Pitts is, but I think he's a much better talent all the way around at the tight end position. It's kind of funny because you throw on tape of a receiver on the opposing team playing Georgia, right? And I think it was Devontae Walker when I was watching the Kent State against Georgia, where Devontae Walker had a phenomenal game. And the very first play of the game was a freaking a handoff to Brock Bowers for 50 yards. And I'm just like, wow, Pitts is never used in this type of ability scheme, anything. So Brock Bowers, in my personal opinion, is absolutely number one. Do you have something to say about Brock Bowers?
No, I just think I don't have anything to say about the prospect. I just have this. I have something to say about where you got to take him to get him. You're going to have to spend a heck of a high pick to get him in rookie mock drafts. So if you believe he's going to end up getting a large target share as a rookie, which he could get that with the Chargers. Your dream scenario is Chargers, right? Herbert with Harbaugh, Brock Bowers. That's what you're hoping, right? That's what everybody's hoping. We know that Jim Harbaugh loves to focus on the tight end position. I'm moving away from drafting Brock Bowers. I'd rather trade the pick, and get value that way and be able to get somebody more established within the tight end ranks. But I get it, man. Brock Bowers is a monster. He's going to be a monster. I just don't know if I want to make the decision to take him where you're going to have to take him. You're going to have to probably take him at 106, 106, 107. Depends if it's super flex. If it's super flex, it's 106, 107. If it's
so you're
not,
saying based on your rankings, which you had Marvin, Neighbors, and then Romo Dunze. So at 106, so we're going Caleb, Daniels, Drake May, Neighbors, Marvin. That's 5. So you're saying the decision that you're having to
Rome
make
or him.
Is Rome or him.
Yeah.
So what you want is pick 7. If it really, because so wait, so okay, let's say you have pick 7. So you're gonna go Troy Franklin, Michael Penix, or Brock Bowers, or Bo Nix, depending on what you want, right?
Yeah,
depending on landing spots, or let's say this could even, where would Brock Bowers have to go for you to pick him at 7, or are you not picking him at 7 no matter where he goes?
There's a couple teams where I have to take him. So I think 107 is totally fine to take him there. I just won't take him over Rome. I just won't do it. I'm not going to do it. I'd rather have the wide receiver position. Troy, like we talked about, Troy's a tier below Rome for me. He's in that tier below, and Brock is in his completely other tier. Like, he's just, compared to Jatavion Sanders, he's in a tier completely different than that guy. So for me, I would much rather take the wide receiver at 107 or 106, Rome, and then hopefully swing back around and go target myself Jatavion Sanders in the second round and get that freak athlete that, he's a monster. Sanders is a monster in his own right. He can definitely get that yak ability. He has a lot of speed at his height, weight, and speed. I'm excited to see him in the combine. I want to see what he runs compared to a Brock Bowers. But for me, I don't like taking tight ends that high, man. Overall, period. That's just not my kind of thing. I'd rather trade the pick out and go get myself more of established tight end like a McBride. That's what I would rather do. That's just my philosophy in the way I play fantasy football.
So yeah, I mean, it's so tough because
it is.
Because you're right. Like last year, we drafted Dalton Kincaid 8 or 9 or whatever, and then you got Laporta later, and that just so happened to work out. But I think it's going to be tougher to secure JT Sanders by the time that it actually comes down to it.
Right. He's going to fly up boards, I think.
I think he's going to end up going 2-2 to 2-4 by the time we're all really said and done with it.
Yeah.
And sure, if you can get somebody to trade up and take a McBride plus for your 107, I probably would do that. But if you can't secure a tight end plus for 7 and he goes to the Chargers,
I'll smash at Chargers. Yeah,
but if Romo Dunze ends up at 10 to the Jets and you have to contend with the Garrett Wilson,
that's true.
My problem is I would probably knock Rome to 7, but remember from part 1 is I would still be in on Rome at 7.
Oh yeah, I'm taking Rome no matter what within the top 7. No matter, like, I just think Rome is a difference maker in a big way, and we know how it takes years for tight ends to become tight ends. We were lucky that we got Laporta last year. We didn't, we liked Laporta because we knew that the coach in Detroit, I just he's a tight end himself, and we love the fact that that was his tight end, right?
We got a troll comment here, Brandon. We have to. He says, "No, I disagree. The worst sports fans of all time are Michael Jordan fans," and that is so wrong because LeBron sucks compared to Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan's the goat of all time. It's not even close. The LeBrunder bet is fire this year. Will continue to be.
He's old as shit now. You're talking about an old man.
I hate LeBron. LeBron sucks. So listen though, tight end number 2, JT Sanders. I wish he was thicker for his size. He's thick, 6'4", 250, but he actually looks more like he's a 220 guy, you know. So
I think it's because of the way he runs. I think he's fast.
He's a galloping gazelle is what he is. But the thing that I really like about him is that you are going to be able to get him later. So in a second round, if whatever I got to do to grab 201, 2, 3, or 4, and maybe grab 2 of them to say I could come out with JT Sanders plus whatever I got. If I got 2 low, 2-2 to 2-4, and I ended up with JT Sanders and somebody else there, like running backs we're going to talk about soon, then I love that. I'd really go get that. And that's what I really like about JT Sanders is his value. The thing I also really like about him is that Texas seemed to scheme him in the screen game. And that is something that I think is unique because they have Xavier Worthy, they have AD Mitchell, and yet they're screening their tight end a lot. And they're also getting him open down the seam, down the middle in the post routes. And it means to me that he is a scheme fit tight end for a downfield stretching offense. So if he falls to the Dolphins somewhere, I'm just going to smash this guy at 2.1. I mean, I love that. And the Dolphins need a tight end that can actually fit somewhere. And this is going to be great. Now, a lot of people have JT Sanders to the Bengals, and I don't necessarily love it because I don't know Joe Burrow to be a great tight end guy in the NFL. He was at the college level, but I just think it's either maybe his tight ends haven't gotten open against that coverage, or maybe the scheme just doesn't fit the coverage or doesn't fit the tight end very well. The tight ends have performed well on the NFL field in Cincinnati, but not necessarily on the fantasy field. So it's just
I like that. One question. Where would you put Sanders in the ranks of last year's class coming out as prospects? Just one question.
Well, it's tough because you haven't seen Michael Mayer actually like really do in fantasy what you were kind of hoping for. What I loved about Michael Mayer is the fact that he was a possession tight end like Gronk, but unless you're featured like Gronk, it seems to be a little tough. So we all knew that Laporta and Musgrave, we already knew Kincaid had this, but Laporta, Musgrave, even Tucker Kraft, I really like Tucker Kraft coming out, is that these guys were moved tight ends that could play in the open, in open space a lot better than a Michael Mayer was. So Michael Mayer was picked for me purely on the fact that I knew that if he was bet on to be a possession guy, he's going to end up being a Freiermuth and somebody that if you actually targeted him, if he was actually part of your game plan, he was going to succeed. Seems like they haven't found out a way to work him in there. Also because their quarterback play had been really subpar.
Abysmal.
So it's kind of tough. But JT Sanders, he's raw. He's a lot more raw of a prospect. So do I like him better than Michael Mayer?
As an athlete, I do.
I probably like them the same. But obviously, I did not have Laporta over Michael Mayer only because I thought Michael Mayer was a better inline guy. But Laporta has been schemed perfectly. And now you see it. Okay, great. That's why you kind of bet on some of these move guys, because if they can get into the scheme and they can be trusted, then they could be high-end assets. But that's why I like JT Sanders. That's why I like Laporta. Is they're a move guy. If they get into the right scheme and they can become trusted, watch out. But Darnell Washington isn't that guy. And so stuff like that. So I would put him definitely – I would obviously put Laporta. I'd still actually put Laporta 2. from last year's class, even though I love Laporta, I still think that Dalton Kincaid can, if featured in the right way, can be better than Laporta. But Laporta's high end, you're seeing it this year. And if he continues it, then he's absolutely number one, top 3 dynasty tight ends.
It's funny. It all comes down to how much they're going to be featured with these tight ends. And that's my biggest beef with the position, is that's why I don't want to take Brock that high, because it's easier to predict a target share for a wide receiver going into an offense versus a tight end, man. Because as a tight end, it's rare to get an elite target share to get them into a top 5 tight end position. So that's where that's my conundrum with my philosophy, is that I always lean wide. When there's a tie break, I lean wide receiver every time.
I understand what you're saying. What changes that is a little bit of draft capital, a little bit of landing spot. And I just think that the Chargers landing spot is
so good. It's going to be good.
Well, and it's also good because you see that sometimes they are off the field because of injury. And you've seen last year when that did happen, then he just locks in on one guy, locks in on 2 guys with Eckler maybe, but Eckler fell back this year. I just think that they need that third guy. They really need that guy. I think that's going to help. And I think that Harbaugh will feature his tight ends. The Michigan tight end is not very good. Was featured a little bit this year in the offense. You say that it was JJ McCarthy, which maybe held back the offense, but I just think that in the NFL it's a little different.
What's your comp for JJ McCarthy? Who's your comp?
I don't really have a comp yet.
I can't put my thumb on it. I don't.
He's not Brock Purdy, but because he has better rushing upside, and I don't think he's the passer secure passer Brock Purdy is. But I would say he's like a little bit of Jordan Love with a little bit of Brock Purdy, but below those guys, and with a little bit of Goff. Like, you know what I mean? It's just kind of tough.
He does have some Goff to him.
So do you have anything on tight end 3? Because I kind of do. I got a little bit on tight end 3.
Go for it, man.
A lot of people don't. So this is guys you'll find in the 3rd round. If you're a Senior Bowl guy, then you saw Jaheim Bell. Jaheim Bell from Florida State seems to be the guy. At 3, he's not my 3, but he seems to be the guy that most people will take at 3. Write this name down, Jaheim Bell. He is more like JT Sanders. He is absolutely a size unique phenomenon. He's an athlete. He's just extra raw. I mean, so raw. But if you watch a Senior Bowl game, you'll notice. I mean, he's there. He's getting open. Again, scheme him. Give him some touches, maybe, but you might take a shot on him just because of the pure athlete he is. But my tight end 3 is Dallin Holker from Colorado State. Now, what's really cool about this guy, who's another Colorado State guy that you like, McBride. Okay, so he's a real good hands catcher. He's got great concentration. He doesn't have elite production, but none of these guys really do coming out of that smaller school. I mean, some guys do, but not a possession tight end. He isn't going to be that. Possession tight ends are really, really great at the in for real NFL. It's what keeps him on the field. He doesn't have elite speed, but if you go and watch his tape over the middle and down the seam, he gets open and a lot. I mean, now it's against weaker competition, but that doesn't change the way he attacks the football. He reminds me a lot of Tyler Higbee, but not really as an inline blocking tight end. But I think that he can be somebody that is utilized in that area, but more of a shed and go, just a chippy inline guy, but he's going out. He's got upside to grow as an inline blocker. He looks a lot like Hawkinson if you watch him. And please do go put on the tape of Dallin Holker from Colorado State.
Definitely
And you
will.
know that it has been a tight end factory a little bit. And
Mhm.
it's just like Iowa, where they at Colorado State, they run a really great scheme for their tight ends because that is how good football is played. The tight end is featured in your passing offense. Good football is being played. And simple as that. When you have no tight ends in your game, you're the Seattle Seahawks, where they're purely outlet guys, but then those tight ends may move on to another team, be featured, and then all of a sudden you see where they're really at, and who they really are. I don't want to knock him for not being the typical size, but at the tight end position, you see, I mean, give opportunity to a tight end and he's tight end 7,
It's
tight
true.
end 8, right?
It's true.
in fantasy. In the 3rd round, I'm absolutely taking a shot on Dallin Holker. And please, after this, go throw on just a highlight tape of him. And Brandon, especially you, because you could text me, right? The second you leave, go put on some tape of him and tell me that you actually really don't love this guy, the way he is. So that will be the end of it here. We gave you almost a top 4 tight ends there. We will come back with part 3, which is our running backs. And then once we're done with this 3-part session, which we didn't imagine being a 3-part session, then we'll actually start to dive into a little bit of these guys that are not being mentioned, or at least not being mentioned as much. Quick to end the podcast, Brandon, do you want to tell me a guy, just like we did last time, maybe one guy of the people that we talked about that you like, not necessarily sleeper, but just guys that we're going to talk about down the road as we got through the bulk of this class, a guy you like maybe of the positions that we talked about?
Roman Wilson is rising. Roman Wilson lit up the Senior Bowl like no other. The guy can separate. He's got some dog to him. Complete route runner. I'm going to throw in some more JJ McCarthy tape. I gotta see some more. And a lot of Roman Wilson pops up when you do. So that's a guy I kind of like. Also, well, I'm going to keep this next name for
our running backs. Yes. So my guy that I will continue to pound the table for, and I've been doing it a long time, is Spencer Rattler. Okay. Not somewhat of a faller all week at Senior Bowl, because when this guy's a gamer, man. I don't care that he is absolutely Drew Lock. I'm okay with that. Drew Lock got a chance to start, didn't work out for him. Spencer Rattler, give him a chance to start, see what can happen with him. I'll take a Sam Howell as Spencer Rattler. He was the MVP. He had gotten shit on all Senior Bowl, because obviously Bo Nix and Michael Penix are right there. So is he those guys? No, he's not. Throw him in the game, launches a fucking touchdown, ends up being MVP, out there for 2 series, makes MVP because the guy's a fucking gamer. Okay.
Hey, I
want him. I want him as a Seahawk. He is undersized. He is Bryce Young. He's light, Bryce Young light, because he's Bryce Young's size, but he's not the mind Bryce Young is. That's why Bryce Young didn't do well this year, is because he didn't take chances, in my opinion. Spencer Rattler will take every chance, even if it comes up as a negative for him. And I really like that. And I really, really like that. I've been talking about Spencer Rattler for a long time. Every time you put on Spencer Rattler tape, you love it. Every time you see him in a game, you love it. You may not like it on the practice field. Anyway, thank you, Brandon, Adam. Appreciate you. I am Flex Matt. We are the DFS Army Fantasy Football Show. We are still getting trolled. I don't care. Fuck LeBron. See you guys later.